Hello, Internet. This is Contentious Critiques, because where would you all be without me? Okay, let me go ahead and make something clear while this run is as few steps in as it is. I don't very heavily factor the age of a piece into my decision to feature it on here. For one, this show has had a very slow and turbulent development on top of how late I got into this field in the first place, so I have, safe to say, long missed out on the buzz for a lot of material. But beyond that, two of my big reasons for doing this are to spread perspective on how to make movies and games and such work properly, and to show everybody how clever and awesome I am, because it has been a long time coming. And neither of these endgames are affected by the age of the material, as rationale does not age. So, this episode's topic is a video game from 2010, whose long-awaited sequel came out not even very recently, and I do not particularly want to fucking hear it. Another thing to clarify ahead of time is that I can be quite a harsh critic when it comes to video games, and the reason for this is a perspective of mine, that because video games run on interactive mechanics, they're more liable than other forms of art to be ruined by seemingly small problems. Movies and songs and such can have a hard time surviving a bad performer or some recurring or fundamental fault. But video games take mechanical input from the audience and process it in a mechanical fashion. So when a video game has a problem, it's often one that the audience has to actively work with, as one begrudgingly would a poorly designed tool. And say what you will about bad movies, I myself am certainly want to, but that is on a whole other level than simply watching or listening to something fail to keep its shit together. And my ability to enjoy video games does feel a sting over this. I am not very forgiving of gameplay flaws, and I will gleefully and sadistically drag a game's face through the mud for what most people probably wouldn't think is that big a deal. Like you, Dragon's Dogma. Look, I love you, Dragon's Dogma, honestly I do, but let's face uncomfortable realities. You put a lot of emphasis on support NPCs, and you have enemies with knockback attacks on narrow cliff sides. That is not even remotely cool, and you should be embarrassed. God of War 2018, you are a third-person hack and slasher with a camera so close I can barely see my damn calves, and in which attacks and blocks cannot be directed with the left stick. I beg on my knees your pardon, but how the hell is that even legal? Skyrim. Fuck you. And despite this, I find I have a weird inability to avoid getting hooked into gaming hype. Even though I know that it's probably gonna fuck up somehow, I often can't keep myself from getting optimistic. Every now and then, and not dauntingly rarely, I like a game well enough to have been hooked, but at the end of the day, too many do just enough wrong to make me wonder why the hell I bother. And this brings me to the fruit of this episode, Red Dead Redemption. And Red Dead Redemption is a game that I've thought of before as a poster child for video games' inability to deliver on the hype that they managed to hook me into, because I was hooked as hooked gets for this one. I was on the edge of my seat for its release. So rabidly eager was I, in fact, that I did something that I at the time almost never did. I pre-ordered it. No. I just bought it new. Dear God. And what did I get for my time and energy? Well, let's get into that, why don't we? Oh, and this video is specifically going to be about the original Red Dead Redemption from 2010, but I'll go ahead and throw a comparative segment on Red Dead Redemption 2 at the very end, for those who give a crap. Okay, so the gist of Red Dead Redemption's gameplay is that it's an open-world third-person shooter that takes place in the American Old West. Beyond that, the game's drawing hook is that it is so very pretty. Now, I have, to be sure, defended being pretty as a drawing hook, and Red Dead Redemption certainly looks good enough to be about looking good. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous game in pretty much every audio-visual respect. The scenery is breathtaking, clearly, but even beyond that, the animation is lively and expressive, the voice acting and facial animation are fantastic, the combat ragdoll physics are an indulgent treat indeed, the weather effects are mesmerizing, even the sound design is lovely, between gunshots, footsteps, and crappy old western piano. This game entices with audio-visual sensationalism, and god damn it, it delivers. Now, I do believe that looks can compensate for lackluster story in a movie, and I'm inclined to also think that they can compensate for lackluster gameplay in a video game, but this only goes so far, and I would say that gameplay has greater responsibility. See, the relationship between story and set piece is not the same as that between gameplay and set piece. Story is useful for preventing stagnation, but story quality does not directly affect set piece quality. Oh, it affects eagerness to watch set pieces, and a bad story can make them not worth it, but however you improve or worsen avatars, characters, message, plot, and whatever the hell else, the raw aesthetic value of this sequence is not going to change. Gameplay, by contrast, very much does directly affect set-piece quality. Animation and sound design do of course factor in, but when the audience is actively performing the set-piece, the experience is made better or worse by what the audience is able to do, required to do, and expected to avoid. But enough with the hypothetical. Let's take a look at Red Dead Redemption itself and see what we can determine. Well, first and foremost, Red Dead Redemption is an action game, so obviously combat is going to be a major factor. So, given that the game is about audio visuals, what mechanically should the combat focus on? What should the combat allow and or require the player to do to showcase beauty? My advice would be to emphasize fast and open-ended movement and throw in a lot of melee and environmental kills. Give the combat a bit of a sandbox feel. This would, A, give the animation a lot of material, and B, allow the combat to feel intense without needing to be too difficult, which would be good, because mechanical focus and stress are not necessarily conducive to how looking at and playing with pretty things is supposed to feel. But these are my thoughts on the matter. Let's see what the game goes with. Well, again, the gunshot sound effects and ragdoll physics are very good, so we're off to a solid start, but how do the actual mechanics hold up? The movement is kind of clunky, and there's not much to the level design, so that gets us nowhere. And there's iron sight aiming. That slows down the shooting. That doesn't need to be there. Yeah, this is not really in the spirit of what we're here for. This is limp. I mean, the tone is fairly intense, and the audio visuals are the whole point. This should maybe be faster. It should definitely be more, Okay. So, how am I supposed to avoid getting shot? The movement and the level design aren't exactly... Oh. Right. Cover. Because why not? Okay, so this game, like so many at the time, bases its combat on the need to take cover, and... Well, let's think about this for... at all. This is an action game whose reason for being is to look good, so the action should look intense and impressive. Looking at pretty things is a casual and laid-back activity, so the combat should be liberating and arguably low pressure. At what point along your line of reasoning does it seem like a good idea to restrict movement and activity? How is forcing me to hide from my enemies and stay still supposed to help me feel like a badass or direct an epic shootout? Tell me something. Do your favorite fight scenes consist of a guy ducking behind a wall? When you fantasize about being the world's greatest commando or assassin or whatever, are you imagining the teeth-clenching, fist-throbbing extravagance of grace and vigor and raw power that is keeping your head down for safety? Is this what action is to you? Because when I think action, I think, for instance, this. This game's selling point is its looks. Cover-based shooting doesn't look good, ergo there's a problem here. This game's selling point is its looks. Looks are best appreciated through a venue that is open-ended and or laid back. Cover-based shooting is restrictive and punishing, ergo there's a problem here. This game's combat should function as though we're controlling, dare I say, directing a fight scene. We should be jumping down from rooftops, kicking doors in, bashing heads into anvils, pounding our chests in the face of danger, not hiding behind a rock going, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me! Now, I may be overstating this somewhat. Enemies are commonly spaced out enough that running and gunning will work to an extent, but the combat is so lacking in any other regard that the need to take cover is just about all that can stand out. If the combat had made some interesting use of movement and area layout, or if there were some good player-triggered animations and environmental effects, then I think a cover system could have fit in just fine. But as it stands, pretty much all we got is an auto-target system that keeps the pace up and a tag and execute mechanic.
Well, that worked.
I'm sorry, but that's not enough. The cover reliance is too much of what's there at all. And if combat that misses the point of the fucking game is a load of bullshit on toast, well, what better a compliment could there be than a nice, tall, empty glass? Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, Red Dead Redemption does not just lazily conform to the status quo, it can also lazily slack off work entirely! I refer, of course, to Red Dead Redemption's open world qualities. Red Dead Redemption, you see, has side activities such as bounty hunting, animal hunting, and clearing bandit fortresses, and they reward you with money, which can be spent on guns, ammo, horses, and consumables. Okay. Guns are obtained for free through the campaign, ammo is picked up from fallen enemies, horses respawn infinitely, and consumables restore stats that regenerate. This game just gives you everything that's supposed to entice you to do side missions. Now, this normally might not be too much of a problem, as this game is more or less supposed to be shallow, but the combat is flat piss, so we're left without much of a reason to explore at all, now aren't we? This game charges its discoverables and explorative elements with combat encounters and substantiates them with money, but the combat sucks and the money is worthless, so what reason do we have to look for and explore your lovingly rendered towns, fortresses, and caves, Red Dead Redemption? So what we've got here is an open-world action game with barren exploration elements and whose combat actively works against the Prime Directive. Way to keep your shit together, Rockstar. Well, this game has a hell of an upward climb to make at this point if it wants to save itself, but you know what, to be fair, as I said, the game still does look very good. Even if it's pointless and unpleasant to actually do anything, there is still a lot of beautiful scenery to wander and admire. That's not enough, but it is something, and, well, if we may as well calm the hell down for a minute, it's not as though a game could take something like horizontal movement and make a complete ass out of itself with it, right? Even a game as poorly thought out as Red Dead Redemption surely couldn't have the sheer imbecility to make basic traversal annoying. It's a very simple and well-established mechanic. Tilt the left analog stick, move in the corresponding direction relative to the camera. Optionally, press or hold a button to go faster, optionally at the cost of stamina. That's it. That's it. That's how this works. Video games have been around for decades, we've got running figured out. And running mechanics do not need gimmicks, now do they? Just don't fuck this up, Rockstar. Just, please do not fuck up walking through a scenic environment. I mean, how the hell would you even do that? Well, let's see what we've got here. Now, first of all, your horse sprints when you mash the A button. And the horse sprinting runs on a stamina meter, measured by a very small bar in the bottom corner, depletion of which causes the horse to throw you off of its back.
God damn it.
And the horse moves even faster when you keep on dirt trails. Rockstar, buddy, did we forget that little talk we had with Mommy about trying our bestest? You have to think before you act, Rockstar. Actions have consequences. You see, consequences are things that happen because other things happened. For example, if you don't take care of your gameplay mechanic design, your game doesn't get to be fun anymore. Yes, it's very sad, but you didn't try very hard, did you? Tell you what, Rockstar, just tell you what. Why don't we just get somebody on board, somebody who is not an emotionally stunted paste eater with some kind of sensory disorder, to just supervise your brainstorming sessions. Somebody who can fill the evidently crucial role within the Rockstar Games creative think tank of the guy with the squirt bottle, who says, no, 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 no. Bad game design. Bad, very bad game design. Rockstar, for fuck's sake, this is embarrassing. This is one of those goofy sitcom moments where the doofus character is left to something for a short time and fucks it up in a way that shouldn't even be possible.
Look, I gotta go.
I thought you said you had to go.
This game is about looking at pretty things. This game's strengths begin and end with audio-visual power and world aesthetic, and when all that we are doing is traveling through and looking at its beautiful scenery, it tells us to keep our eyes to the dirt under our feet and to check a tiny HUD device in the bottom corner for when and when not to mash a button. Have none of you limp-wristed guffawing stooges ever taken a walk in your lives? Or do you just have so much trouble walking upright that you assumed everybody else needed it to be a perpetual chore just to feel immersed? You know, I tell people that I don't think Red Dead Redemption was very good, and they ask me, why not? Like, is that a serious fucking question? Why do I not particularly like a game that has nothing to offer but scenery and then gives you shit for wanting to just look at the goddamn scenery? What the hell else do you need explained to you? Do you not get why people hate Mass Effect 3's ending, or would think that Domino from Deadpool 2 was an unlikable psychopath? Okay, you know what? What? Imagine that you're taking a nice, pleasant walk down a lovely wilderness trail at a mountain or river or some shit. Lots of handsome trees and chirping birds, right? Now, as you carry on walking and taking in the scenic banquet, you are also wearing a watch and holding a ballpoint pen. When the second hand on the watch is between the 12 and the 3, you have to mash the holster button on the pen clicker and stop when the second hand reaches the 3, pick it back up again between the 6 and the 9. Repeat this pattern as the minutes pass. As you take a wilderness hike, you're also checking your wristwatch for when to start and when to stop mashing a pen clicker every 15 seconds. And also, you're keeping your eyes on your feet to make sure your footsteps are landing within 2 feet of the right edge of the path as much as possible. Does this wilderness hike still sound fun? Does what I have proposed sound appropriate for a walk through some pretty woods? Or does it make you wonder if I need to be diagnosed with something? Now, yes, for fuck's sake, I know. This is not compulsory, it merely makes you go faster, and even if you just hold A and don't bother with any of it, the speed you'll maintain is perfectly agreeable. But can someone please, for the love of Christ, explain to me what the point of this setup is? All you fuckers out there calling me a whiny casual or whatever, can you just take a minute to imagine that you're playing this game, right? The same exact game, except to maintain and maximize travel speed, all you have to do is hold a button and push the left stick. Next time you're frolicking through the woods in Red Dead Redemption, just imagine that how fast you went by mashing A is how fast you went just by holding it instead. And that if you run out of stamina, you just have to wait a little while before sprinting again. Is there anything different about that that isn't better? Actually, you know what? Yeah, let me put this just one more way. What if this sprinting system were to be made into, say, a Skyrim mod? Yeah, think about it. Nexus entry called immersive sprinting or some shit, and what it does is lower the default sprinting speed and require you to mash the left bumper to sprint at normal speed. And if you run out of stamina by sprinting, you collapse from exhaustion for 5 to 7 seconds. Also, the stamina meter is now the size of half a ballpoint pen ink cartridge, and the sprinting speed is lowered even further if you leave the walking path. If you're going to tell me that I'm making too big a deal about this, then you expect me to believe that you would see that mod on Nexus and think anything other than, why would you even make that? Who the hell wants to play an open-world sightseer like this? See, it's not just about how bad a mechanic it is in and of itself. It's about the fact that literally all it does is fuck with you. If you are the type of person who would feel that itch to move fast, in a game about horseback riding, might God even imagine, then this game's open-world traversal and exploration, a not even remotely insubstantial component of its experience, will be spent wrestling with the decision between moving at top speed or just enjoying the scenery without bother. Even if very few people get as annoyed about it as I do, even if few people get annoyed about it at all, the question remains, why would you do that? If a feature does nothing but hassle 2% of the audience, even if it's just 2%, why put it in at all if that's all it does? I mean, okay, yeah, let's see if we can actually think of a benefit to this system. What of the game does it play a factor in? Well, there's the occasional horseback racing or chasing mission or side activity, and okay, the need to maintain stamina could be a challenging component. Except it isn't in this case. Mash when full, stop when empty is not a challenge, it's an instruction for a bottom-line factory worker, and yeah, I think that's it. That's what this system provides, a shallow pretension of challenge for a recurring side activity. I really hope it was worth the integrity of the game's core identity. So yeah, you can tell me all you like, just don't worry about it, bruh. You don't have to do it, you can just not go as fast or not get so worked up. Yes, you're not wrong, but the point remains, there is no reason for it, and it obstructs the game's reason to exist. Most may think it a small hassle, but any kind of hassle is the absolute last thing that a wilderness hike should be, and god damn it, this wilderness is too good to not have a nice hike through. And none of this is even mentioning the gurgling dipshit move of assigning the run sprint function to a face button. Like, Rockstar, do you think maybe there's something else I should be using that finger for? What finger handles the A button, guys? What else is that finger involved with that might be relevant to the point of a sightseeing game? Again, think of what you would do in a wilderness hike! So, droll and restrictive combat, barren exploration, and annoying traversal. It's like an unholy trinity. And as for Red Dead Redemption 2, if you'd like my take, yeah, it is a palpable improvement. For quite frankly, a decadent assortment of reasons, none least of which being greater scenery variety and an absolutely phenomenal story, not to mention an ending that wasn't total bullshit. But for the sake of this video, we will just go over comparisons to the aforementioned active flaws of its predecessor. For one, there is now a respectable assortment of things to accrue from explorations, shops, and side activities that the game does not just give you for beelining down the campaign, so this massively, eye-wateringly gorgeous open-world arrangement actually provides something as lofty as a reason to go outside. I mean, hold your, as it were, horses, Rockstar. It's almost like this is an ambitious series or some shit. That said, the combat is not fixed at all, which I honestly was taken aback by. I kind of figured that the only reason Red Dead Redemption had cover-based shooting was that it was the hip thing at the time, and Red Dead Redemption 2 came out after that fad seemed to have resoundingly ended. For that reason alone, the combat was the only thing that I was actively expecting to be addressed, and it's untouched. Odd. And, of course, the traversal, and yeah, I was not expecting this to be addressed at all, given that I seem to be the only one who noticed what a problem it was with the first game, but as it happens, that front did pleasantly surprise me. While the mechanic itself is ill-advisably still there at all, the stamina depletes significantly more slowly, and that does make a surprising difference. Moving slower off of beaten paths seems to have been removed entirely, thumbs up on that for the love of God. And of course, cinematic mode is an addition that I for one heartily welcome, although you really should be able to move the camera during it, and I frankly resent having to step out of it to check on the stamina meter, but overall, yeah, much better. So, when it comes down to it, Red Dead Redemption is very well presented, but on the inside, what's not dead is malformed. I do believe that looks can compensate for little substance, but for $60 and dozens of hours, not this little. And certainly not when what is there actively deters from the Prime Directive. Ultimately, pretty damn mediocre. This is Contentious Critiques, and you're welcome.